Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening to the listening public, the beautiful people of Nevis, those beautiful people over there in St. Kitts, those who are listening all across the Caribbean. Let me say a special good evening to those who are in Anguilla, those who are in St. Martin, those who are in the VI, US VI, and the British Virgin Islands. Special good evening to those of you who are listening from Puerto Rico. Buenas noches, Puerto Rico. Those in the Dominican Republic, buenas noches to you as well. Good evening to all of those who might be in Barbados and Trinidad and Jamaica, the Bahamas, those who are attending university, who might be tuned in this evening. A special evening to our friends and family in the United States and Canada, and those who are certainly over there in the United Kingdom. I know that we have regular listeners all across the world, and I say good evening to you and welcome to another edition of On the Mark. My name is Mark Brantley. I'm the Premier of Nevis, but also the host of this show, and we have been here for quite some years. I started out when my beard was not yet grey. It is now fully grey, so you understand that some time has gone by. But we are grateful to God for the opportunity and for the health and strength. I want to thank Everett Weber Herbert and the team here at Vaughan Radio. They have given us, of course, this incredible platform, and of course Merrick Herbert, who has passed on but whose legacy lives on through Vaughan Radio and through programs such as these. These are institutions that have helped to shape the island of Nevis and the wider Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. So I say thank you to them for giving me this opportunity, and thank you to Daniel Brantley, the leading law firm in the Federation that has over the past decade and a half sponsored this show every single week. And that is what has allowed us to have a show for 2 hours of primetime radio every Wednesday from 8 to 10 p.m. without commercials. We don't need to go to commercials because the law firm of Daniel Brantley has paid for this show every single week. And I believe that they ought to be remembered for their contribution to freedom of expression. This show is a show that invites all shades of public opinion, that allows everyone to have their say, and even where we don't agree, and that happens often, we urge you not to be disagreeable. Our aim on this show is to uphold the standards here at VON Radio, where only the best will do, but also to emphasize, to promote, and to encourage the type of dialogue that lifts all of us up. We can have heated arguments, heated debates. We can certainly engage and see things differently. We are, of course, in a democracy, and no two of us will always be alike or will always think alike. But we ask that we be respectful of each other, that we try where possible to state our points clearly and succinctly, that we argue our points fully, that we come armed with facts, not fiction, and that we have a debate that those who are listening can learn something from. That's the simple objective of this show, is to promote freedom of speech, but also to promote responsible speech. And so with that, we get into the show. As you know, the format that this show has taken over the last few years is that we have what I refer to as my soliloquy. I engage on whatever topic it is that I would like to engage on, and then we open the lines, and you who are listening and you who can call would engage on whatever topic you see fit to engage in. That's the way it works. You can, when the lines are open, talk about what I'm talking about, or you can say, I don't want to talk about those things, I have my own topic, and you're more than welcome to raise that as well. Wherever possible, I try to answer, I try to engage, and where I don't have the answers, or I don't have a point of view to offer, then I try to come back to you at some other time. This show, however, is intended to be interactive. So the idea really is when the lines open, you make your point and we have a conversation. And I think that that's very important, that we have a conversation. We learn how to converse with each other, how to engage with each other, how not to cuss and fight, but rather to exchange views. And that for us is really important, and that's the type of Nevis and the type of federation that we would ultimately like to have. And so I encourage your calls when the lines are open, and in the interim I start by, of course, extending congratulations to all of those who are celebrating, all of those who are having birthdays or anniversaries or a moment to celebrate. I celebrate with you. For those who are mourning, those who might be sick, those who are afflicted in some way, I extend my condolences, I extend my sympathies, and I'm hopeful that those who may be sick, that you recover quickly. I am holding up quite a few of my friends and loved ones in my prayers and hoping that they who are suffering will be better soon. As always, I ask all of you to remember each other in our prayers and to ask God for his guidance, his forgiveness, and to ask that he not turn his face away from us here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Thus far this year, God has been good to us in terms of our weather. We had, as you know, some terrible drought conditions which led to some water shortages that we were suffering from. But God has seen it fit to send his rain, and we've had quite a good rainy season thus far. And our hope is that as we continue to have rains, that it will help to alleviate our water situation. That, of course, is the natural fix. But whilst we are praying, we are also preparing. And so we have our drillers here who are undertaking some drilling operations on the island of Nevis for more water. We have invested in much better storage, much better distribution, and we look forward to continuing to invest so that our people can have a water supply that is reliable and a water supply that can be trusted. And so that is where we are at this point in time in relation to water. But I believe that God has been good to us. He has also been good to us in that we have been spared thus far from many storms. I know that we are only in September. And I do know that September and October tend to be the most feared months when it comes to storms from the Atlantic. But we are thankfully at this juncture, 25th today, I believe, of September, and we have not had any storms. We've had the threat of a storm, but nothing yet. Please forgive me. I need to have a little water. You know, when you start talking, your throat gets dry, so I don't know what's happening. But I ask you to forgive me for that. And just to say that God has been good to us thus far. We have been spared any storms or ravages of any hurricanes. And as I'm speaking to you now, we have no indication that there are any storms that have formed or are on their way. And so for every day that we go without a storm, I am eternally grateful. It was, I believe, back in 2017, not so long ago, that at this time we had hurricanes Irma and Maria creating extreme carnage throughout the Caribbean. Even then, God in his wisdom and his love and compassion spared St. Kitts and Nevis the worst. Other countries like Dominica, Antigua, Barbuda, and elsewhere were very, very badly damaged. And so we have a lot to be grateful for, and I believe that we ought to continue to express that gratitude and to give thanks. It is not because we are good, it is because God is merciful why we have endured and why we are here today. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a lot that is happening. There's a lot that's happening in the world, and I fear that the world is getting more dangerous. I believe that those of us who are privileged to call St. Kitts and Nevis our home should also acknowledge that we are and continue still to be a place of peace. Yes, we have our problems, and we've had this year an upsurge in violent crime. But I've always expressed confidence in our police and in our people that we will be able to handle it. And I'm hopeful that the lull that we're now experiencing, that lull continues, and that we're able to finish the end of the year with no further incidents of violent crime. But when we look at our globe, we look at war now between Russia and Ukraine. We look at war in Gaza as Israel continues to bomb Gaza targets within Palestine. We look now at the further conflagration where Israel has now decided that it will go into Beirut, and not Beirut, I'm sorry, Lebanon, forgive me, and is bombing. They have not yet reached Beirut, but certainly the south of Lebanon, and Israel has been bombarding the south of Lebanon as well. We understand that Hezbollah, which is referred to as a terrorist organization, that they have been launching rockets into Israel, and that has caused that area of Israel to be evacuated. What we see happening is a very dangerous situation globally. Any of those situations, Ukraine, Russia, or the situation in Gaza and the Middle East, can lead to a wider conflagration. And I have continued to pray, and I hope all of us are praying for peace, that the people of Israel, the government of Israel, the people of Palestine, the people of Lebanon, the people of Ukraine, the people of Russia, that they can once again know peace. You know, sometimes people go to war. They do so in families, they do so as individuals, they do so as countries. And oftentimes you're left to wonder why. When we look at the carnage and we see how many innocent lives are lost, how many children, how many women, how many non-combatants, how many innocent civilians, and we ask ourselves a question as to when man's inhumanity to man will end. We have had for far too long a history of violence in this world. We have had for far too long institutions that have perpetuated violence upon our people. We had World War II and the horrors of the Holocaust, where Adolf Hitler tried to wipe out as many Jews as possible in the most horrific fashion. We have had, prior to that, the long centuries of slavery, where our forefathers were brought from Africa in chains and made to work for centuries for free. And the profits of exploitation of our people and our resources went to build up the great cities and the great civilizations that we see in Europe. We have seen in the United States the impact of Jim Crow. We have seen the effect of slavery and the ongoing discrimination that many minorities there suffer. We have seen in Canada the treatment meted out there to the indigenous peoples of Canada. We have had difficulties all across the globe. Some of us are old enough to remember that there was once something in South Africa called apartheid. We have had man's inhumanity to man on display around the world. And sometimes it leads us almost to despair. Because you say, what does it profit one man to kill his brother or to suppress his brother? What is the value of that, and why is it that we can't live in peace? Even if we differ, even if we have a different point of view, why is it we can't live in peace? And that is why I continue to say that those of us who live in the Caribbean, ought to feel privileged that despite our challenges, we're not fighting any wars. We're not engaging in any aggression against our neighbors. We are seeking as far as possible to live peaceably amongst each other. And I'm hopeful that this zone of peace that we have cultivated, that we have worked hard for, that we will continue to maintain that zone of peace, a zone of stability and peace, a zone of rational and good sense in a world that seems not always to make sense. Currently, our Prime Minister, Dr. Terence Drew, and his team are in New York. They're there for the United Nations General Assembly, which, as we know, occurs each September. And they will be engaging, no doubt, in meetings and making statements to the UN General Assembly, where the world will be listening as to what the perspective is for a small country like St. Kitts and Nevis. It is my hope that as part of that presentation, our Prime Minister will sound the alarm in terms of what is happening globally, the instability, the wars and rumors of wars, the threats of wars, and the violence and carnage that is being visited on so many innocent people across the world. And that he will ask and lend his voice to those who are asking for it to stop. It is important at times like these that we not be quiet. That small as we are, the global system of multilateralism affords us the opportunity to get on the stage with the largest countries in the world and to make our statement and to make our voice loud. And so it is my hope that we will touch on and address some of these issues. It is my hope that we will touch on and confirm our unwavering commitment to the people of the Republic of China, Taiwan, and their efforts to have their voice heard internationally. We believe as a small nation, I believe only 24 million people, they have demonstrated that they have all of the requirements of a developed, sophisticated democracy. Free and fair elections, a robust economy, rule of law. If you were to go through a checklist, Taiwan ticks all the boxes. And it is my hope that we continue to affirm and reaffirm at the United Nations, the highest body of international law, our commitment to that relationship and our commitment that the people of the Republic of China, Taiwan, must be given a voice in international affairs. It is my hope that in that UN address we reaffirm our commitment to the people of Cuba, our brothers and sisters in the Republic of Cuba, and that we reiterate the cry in which I believe the world is almost unanimous, that the United States lift that long blockade against the people of Cuba. That anachronistic approach, that old remnant of something from the Cold War era, that it is time that the people of Cuba be relieved of that burden of the wealthiest and mightiest country that the world has ever known, setting its face against Cuba and deciding that there ought to be no trade and no normalization of relations with Cuba. Those who implemented that blockade of Cuba, presidents who would have been there in the United States, they've all gone. Fidel Castro, the man who led Cuba through the revolution and against whom these sanctions were put in place, has long died. His brother Raul Castro served as president of Cuba. He too has gone and left the spotlight. Cuba now has a new president. Question then that we must ask is, why are these anachronistic policies still in place? Why are the people of Cuba still being subjected to such hardship for no reason other than an archaic and anachronistic approach in terms of policy? Ideas which have long been discarded, ideas that the Soviet Union presented a threat to the United States, and there was a war, Cold War as they call it, between the Soviet bloc and the West. That is no more. Yes, Russia, which of course is the remnant of the Soviet Union, is now in direct conflict with Ukraine and by extension, by proxy, with the West. But the people of Cuba are not involved in that. People of Cuba are our brothers and sisters. They are Caribbean people just like us. They may speak Spanish where we speak English, but that is merely a function of colonialization. They are every sense Caribbean people. And I'm hopeful that our Prime Minister makes it known that we support and stand with the people of Cuba. Climate change, no doubt, will loom large. I noticed that in the delegation we have Senator Joel Clark, who's charged with much to do with the environment. And so I'm hopeful that that too will be a significant part of that address. So we will see how that goes, and we hope that the Prime Minister and his team will be successful, because if they succeed, we succeed. As we look at the global landscape, as we see the escalation of conflict within the Middle East, as we see the danger, the very real and present danger, that significant powers like Iran might be drawn into that conflict, we can only pray that those world leaders at the United Nations can come up with a solution to bring peace and a lasting peace to the Middle East. St. Kitts and Nevis has long supported the position of a two-state solution for Israel and Palestine. We have long said that these two peoples must be able to coexist peacefully and to each have its own state. It is for that reason that I was privileged as Foreign Minister to be the one to recognize the state of Palestine. And in fact, just recently, during the course of our 41st anniversary of our independence, I had the opportunity to engage with my dear friend, Ambassador Linda Sobe, who is the Palestinian ambassador to St. Kitts and Nevis. We also recognize Israel. We have profound respect for the government and people of Israel, and we feel that it is time that good sense prevails, and that the people of Israel and the people of Palestine and the people of the Middle East, that they be brought to the table as brothers, and that peace would abound. May they be able to sing and say, our country, our region where peace abounds, just as we here in St. Kitts and Nevis are able to say our country where peace abounds. Ladies and gentlemen, I am happy to report that today the cabinet of the Nevis Island government would have met, and we would have met and been privileged to engage with Dr. Marcus Natta. And Dr. Natta is the cabinet secretary for the federal government. A very good man. In my experience with him, he has always been incredibly helpful. And he came to share with us a program, and I want to say a word or two about it tonight. I was privileged just yesterday to travel to St. Kitts, and while there to give some remarks at the Susanna Lee Scholarship ceremony, where Social Security would have for the 41st year given scholarships out to all the students that were selected from all of the high schools in the Federation. One student from each high school. And it was a joyous occasion for me to be there with students and their families, with the officials who were there and the Social Security staff, to celebrate what I think is incredibly significant. It was particularly joyful for me to be there because 41 years ago I was the very first recipient of a Social Security scholarship. So I am where I am today in large measure because the good people at Social Security 41 years ago decided that they will invest in me. And coming from a poor background as I did, it was incredibly helpful that that burden was removed from my family, and that throughout my high school and sixth form years I had the assistance of Social Security. It is for that reason that I said yesterday, and I say again now, that I encourage all of our people who are working to register with Social Security. If you are self-employed, register with Social Security. Many see Social Security as a tax. It is not. Social Security is an investment. You get out what you put in, and you ensure that when there are times of trouble, when you're off work, when you're on maternity leave, when you're sick, when you retire, that there's something there for you. So I encourage our people, and Social Security has really been involved in every facet of our development. Social Security and the DNA of Social Security is all across the length and breadth of our country. In health, in education, in infrastructure, in housing, Social Security has been there. When you call for an ambulance and an ambulance responds from the Alexandra Hospital, Social Security made that possible. If you live in a house, whether it's at Madden's or elsewhere, and you have the privilege of having your own home all across this island, Social Security through a facility has made that possible. If you have a scholarship, as I did, and as those young people yesterday have been awarded, Social Security has made that possible. And if you're sick, if you're on maternity leave, if you're now retired, Social Security is there for you. The reason that I mention Social Security tonight is because I feel that there have been certain events in the history of our country which stand out in terms of the transformational nature of those events. Certain policy prescriptions. For example, we take for granted in this country that we have mandatory secondary education. Put differently, in St. Kitts and Nevis, by law, every child must go to school until they're 16 years old. I did not even know that it was not so everywhere until some years ago I visited one of our sister countries in the OECS, and high day, as we would say here in Nevis, on a school day, I saw children who looked as young as 7 and 8 and 9 selling in the streets, running between the cars. And I thought to myself, why are those children not in school? Because that is not something we would see in St. Kitts and Nevis. And that's when I was told that some countries do not have mandatory secondary education, at least up until that point. It tells me, therefore, that those who were the architects of that policy understood the far-reaching implications of mandating by law that every boy and girl must go to school until they're 16 years old. We're not given the choice of dropping out when we're 12, or our parents deciding that we must go to work as a child. No. That took some foresight, and I believe it is one of those factors that has catapulted St. Kitts and Nevis to the top of the Human Development Index in the region. We have enjoyed that now for a period that extends beyond our independence as a country. I see that as a transformational policy. I see the enactment of Social Security as a transformational policy. No doubt a lot of our people would have resisted, oh, why are you taking out my money? But I think all of us now who are rational and of right mind would understand that Social Security has been a tremendous benefit to the development and sustainable development of St. Kitts and Nevis. Social Security is about people. And when we grow Social Security and we contribute and we make sure that we honor our obligations, we are really contributing to the quality of life of ourselves. So I put mandatory secondary education, Social Security into that bracket. Of course, in 1983, we had independence for our country, 41 years ago. And that too must be celebrated as a transformational event. We have had, since about 1983, 1984, our Citizenship by Investment program, which again is 40 years old and also has been transformational, not just for St. Kitts and Nevis, but for the world, because St. Kitts and Nevis led the way that others have now copied. And so today I was quite intrigued to hear from Dr. Natta about a program which I confess that when I first heard about it, the Prime Minister spoke about it in the budget in December 2023, I thought, this doesn't sound right. This doesn't sound like it could make sense. Well, clearly the work has been done. And Dr. Natta came to Nevis today to lay out for us this program that is called Aspire. What does Aspire mean? A-S-P-I-R-E. It means achieving success through personal investment, resources, and education. It is a financial education and savings program for St. Kitts and Nevis citizens age 5 to 18. Let me say that again. It means Aspire, achieving success through personal investment, resources, and education. And it is a financial education and savings program for St. Kitts and Nevis citizens age 5 to 18. Let me pause there. Those who are regular listeners to this show, indeed those who pay attention to anything that I might say, you would recognize that one of my constant utterances, one of my ongoing efforts in this country is for our people to accept greater responsibility. For our people in their affairs, in their lives, in their families, to be more responsible. I posted a morning message, something that I do for every working day. And at my morning message recently, I said that too many of us spend our money on our wants, and then we blame somebody else for not being able to satisfy our needs. There are many of us, and I hope that I'm speaking to someone tonight who might be listening. There are many of us who will take our money and we go and we do our nails, we go to the rum shop, we go and we drink with the boys, we take our money and we go to a house of ill repute. But we don't pay child support. We don't buy food and put in the house. We take our money and we buy expensive hair. We adorn ourselves in the finest clothing. We buy the best sneakers. But we refuse to pay Nevlec. We refuse to pay Skelec. We refuse to pay water department. And then when we get cut off, we take to the internet and we take to the airwaves and we say things hard and things bad in the country. Imagine the cut off me electricity. That has been somehow the new normal. It has become the new normal in our country. And our people now are disinclined, it appears, to do the things that are necessary to build themselves and their families, to take responsibility for their actions, and to ensure that their children have the proper guidance as we move forward. I have said on many occasions on this show that I come out of poverty, out of the belly of poverty. Somebody told me the other day that they've heard me and my story 100 times. That I had my mother Vicky, my uncle Jolly, my sister Helen, myself, and my sister Soraya. I also had my sister Michelle. So, 6 people. And we used to have 1 tin of Vienna sausage. And as long as I live, I would know that that tin has 7 sausages in it, because that was our dinner. Everybody got 1, 6 people, and then we used to fight over the last one to see who could get a piece. And if you're lucky, you put out with a little piece of bread, or if you had a little white rice, you crush it up. That was what sometimes we had to eat. 1 tin. I remember that when I first went to New York and I bought a tin of Vienna sausage and ate it by myself, all 7 pieces, I thought that I had come of age, that I was now living the life because I could afford to eat a whole tin by myself. So when I talk about poverty, I understand poverty because I have lived it. That is where I come from. And I always say that I hope my life and the lives of so many others here on this island and in this country might inspire someone out there who said, hey, it doesn't matter the circumstances into which I'm born. Once I have ambition and I'm prepared to work hard, I'm prepared to be responsible, I'm prepared to take the actions and put in the effort, I can succeed. That is my hope. And for me, that is very important. But I make the comment that we have evolved into a society where if our salary is $3,000 a month, we are finding a way to spend $5,000. If our salary is $5,000 a month, we are finding a way to spend $7,000. We have a credit facility at Courts, we have one at Hosford's, we have one at TDC. We're getting fast cash or whatever it's called. We are also have our credit cards. We have maybe our rent or mortgage. That is how we choose to live. And we have, it seems, gone beyond the stage where we say, well, I need a bed and I need a TV and I need a stove. Let me get them one at a time, and as I pay off for one, I get the next. No, we want to go and we want to furnish the whole house at once. We're in a 2-bedroom house, we're only living by ourselves, but we want to furnish the 2nd bedroom and the living room and everything too, one time. So we go and we put ourselves into considerable debt. And then, when we can't manage it, we jump on the airwaves, we jump on the radio, we say things are terrible in the country and how bad things are, and invariably and inevitably we come around to cuss the government. That seems to be what we have become. And I reflected that in my youth I had a beautiful soul called Aunt Elise. She was my great aunt, and I did not grow up around my grandmother. So Elise was sort of who I knew. And she was one of the kindest people that I've ever met. And I used to reflect that Elise didn't work anywhere. I never know how to have a job anywhere. But she always seemed to have some little money tucked away somewhere. The term might have become obsolete in today's world, but it used to be called savings. And now a lot of people say, oh, well, how you expect poor people to save when I got the money? I say, well, I wonder how Elise them used to save something. It may not have to be a lot, but it is a mindset that tells you, put a little something, however small, away for that rainy day, because we know that that rainy day is going to come. Some people don't think about a rainy day. They only think about today. So they spend all that they have, and when they don't spend all that they have, they then borrow, because that's what you do when you use a credit card. You're really borrowing. And you're borrowing at 22 and 23%. That's what you do. And so a lot of our people, that's how we're living. We get online and everything we see on the websites, I can't remember some of the names, but once they go onto the websites and they see this and they see that, they start to order. And that's what happens. We want everything, we want it now. We don't want to save up and say, let me get to the point where I can afford it. My friend has a car, I need one too. My friend child wearing Adidas and Nike, my picnic must wear that too. And that is how we have become as a society. We, ladies and gentlemen, need to break the back of that culture. However it came about, we need now to start to talk about it and tell people you cannot develop sustainably. You cannot try to create wealth in your family. In fact, I dare say you cannot leave poverty if all that you're intending to do is to consume. You will never be able to leave poverty. If every time you get a little money, your first objective is to see how quickly you can spend it, what you can buy, what new you can get, that culture of consumerism is going to keep you poor. Trying to keep up with the Joneses or the Hanleys or the Thomases is going to keep you poor. I say all that to say that as I look at transformational policies and ideas, and recall I said to you that when the Prime Minister announced it last year, I'm just sitting scratching my head say, I wonder what Dr. Drew talking about with this thing about giving money to children 5 to 18. But now that Dr. Natta has come to the cabinet today and explained what is this program that is called Aspire, and I hope people of St. Kitts and Nevis are listening, especially you here in Nevis, because what I am pleased about as we continue to talk about fair share, as we continue to insist that the people of Nevis have equal access to the fruits of their citizenship, this program has been rolled out as a national program. Put differently, the people of Nevis are getting their fair share of this program. So, Aspire, achieving success through personal investment, resources, and education. And what is it? A financial education and savings program for St. Kitts and Nevis citizens who are aged 5 to 18. Now, who is eligible? That's important. All St. Kitts and Nevis citizens aged 5 to 18 who are citizens by birth or descent. Put differently, you must be born here, or your mother, father, grandmother, or grandfather must be born here. You must reside in St. Kitts and Nevis. So what that means is that if you hold a St. Kitts and Nevis passport but you're living in New York or you're living in Toronto, you do not qualify. So you must be between the ages of 5 and 18. You must be a citizen of St. Kitts and Nevis, whether by birth or descent. You must reside in St. Kitts and Nevis, and you must be enrolled in school or registered for homeschooling in St. Kitts and Nevis. So the idea, therefore, is that it will benefit those youngsters who are nationals of St. Kitts and Nevis, enrolled in school or a registered homeschooling program within St. Kitts and Nevis and who live here. That's very important, so people understand who is eligible to benefit. What is the benefit? The benefit is 1,000 EC dollars. That benefit will be $500 in the St. Kitts Nevis Anguilla National Bank savings account, and today I made the argument that the Bank of Nevis should also be involved in this process. I'm hopeful that the government takes that to heart, because of course National Bank has the involvement of the federal government in the ownership. The Bank of Nevis has the involvement of the NIA and Social Security in its ownership. So $500 in St. Kitts and Nevis bank account, held in the Aspire participant's name. So if your child's name is Little Johnny, then Little Johnny, who is 5 years old, 6 years old, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 years old, will be entitled to have that $500 put into an account in his or her name. Today the Cabinet Secretary told us that if there are youngsters out there who were 18 at the time that the Prime Minister made the announcement in 2023, but who have since become 19, then the program would still be extended to them. But for my part, the critical relevance of this program is to catch those children at age 5, basically when they enter in kindergarten, and to work with them now throughout those primary school and high school years. $500 in a bank account, and then the other $500 would be invested in publicly traded shares. The two companies that have thus far been identified, I'm told, are the cable in St. Kitts and the St. Kitts Nevis Anguilla National Bank. So imagine, my 5-year-old little Johnny has now a savings account, $500, and also has shares that are valued at $500, to the value of $500 to start. No. What I think is interesting that you note is that you cannot withdraw that money and you cannot sell those shares until that child becomes 18 years old. So if you start at 5 with $500 savings and $500 in shares, that money, that share value, those dividends, everything in there is continuing to grow until you get to 18. That's when you can touch it. Now they're saying that you can put more in. So when Santa Claus come down the chimney and leave $100 for you, you can say, Mommy, put this in my account there. But the idea is that it's a locked box. You're not allowed to touch it, so it can grow and benefit you. I am advised that the money to initiate the program has already been made available, somewhere between $10 and $11 million. And so just imagine that somewhere between $10 and $11 million has been made available for the children of the Federation, St. Kitts and Nevis, ages 5 to 18. So that is how it's going to be set up. Now, the Aspire participants must remain in the program for a minimum of 5 years until they turn 18, whichever is later. So that is the idea behind it, and I'm just reading the slides that have been provided. Now, if you want to sign up, and for parents who are out there listening, I urge you to rush and sign up your child. Remember, your child must be between the ages of 5 and 18. Your child must be a citizen of St. Kitts and Nevis, born here, or from descent. That is, their mother, father, grandmother, grandfather must have been a citizen of St. Kitts and Nevis. Your child must be living in St. Kitts and Nevis, and your child must be enrolled in a school or home school program in St. Kitts and Nevis. So if you have a child 5 to 18 living in Canada, that child is not eligible. If you have a child here but that child is not a citizen by birth or descent, that child is not eligible. If you have a child here but that child is not enrolled in school, that child is not eligible. So I just want you to understand the requirements. Now you can go to the website www.aspire.gov.kn www.aspire.gov.kn for all the information and to sign up. Go to aspire.gov.kn to apply online. You can also apply in person. They say that the Aspire team will visit schools across St. Kitts and Nevis during this academic year to provide information and assist parents and guardians with the application process. Now, what do you need to apply? You need a birth certificate or valid certificate of citizenship. You need proof of residence, because remember, you have to show that you're living in St. Kitts Nevis. Your parent or guardian must have a valid photo ID, and that has to be a social security card, driver's license, passport. I would imagine that they might also accept your voter registration card. And your parent guardian must leave an email address for future correspondence. Go onto the website www.aspire.gov.kn for more information. Now, I believe, ladies and gentlemen, I've taken some time on this because I believe that this Aspire program, if done right, and I emphasize that, if done right, can, like Social Security, like the policy of mandatory secondary education, catapult us to the next level. We have not seen a program like this so far, as my research shows, anywhere else in the Caribbean. This is really thinking outside the box. I don't know where the Prime Minister came up with the idea, and as I said, I was skeptical. But today, as it was explained to me, I said, you know, if this is implemented, we currently, I'm told, are between 10 and 11,000 children who are eligible between the ages of 5 to 18 across the Federation. Could you imagine what St. Kitts and Nevis could look like in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? As those 10, 11,000 students and those that will be added as they turn 5. How we will look in 5, 10, 15 years in terms of our people being able to make wise decisions about money, about investing. It is transformative if implemented correctly. And so I am here tonight to pass on the information, to encourage those parents, particularly those here in Nevis, to apply. We argued for fair share. We're getting fair share. Go on and apply. Ensure that your child gets that $500, that child gets that $500 in shares, and then allow it to grow. And if you get a little penny here and there, you pinch, push something in there for that child and allow that money to grow, so that at the requisite time that child can take out that money and have something, whether it is to help with their education at 18, they're going off to college, whether it is to buy more shares or invest in something. But more than that, I was very impressed to hear from Janisha Daniel, who's in the vision. She's part of the core committee who's putting this together, and she's been involved very much in the education side of things. And what I feel is fundamental to this program is that there will be a curricula that is developed to teach our students from as low as 5 years old, as young as 5 years old, starting in the primary schools, financial literacy, to teach them what it is to invest, what it means to have an interest rate, what it means to borrow, at what rate. These are the types of things that unfortunately many of us have never been taught. I spoke just recently to a mature person who said to me that they had no idea how certain financial instruments work. They didn't know, for example, the difference between simple interest and compound interest. They had no idea how a mortgage worked. And so, financial literacy, where you sit down and you say, oh, courts say that I could get a TV, I only have to pay $29.99 a week. Sounds good, isn't it? But sometime by the time you finish pay off for that TV, you have bought it 10 times over. Sometimes when you have made certain payments and then the payments stop, you know what happened? They come and they repossess the TV, but you still owe them. Financial literacy. People take credit cards. 22%, 24%. That's the interest that is being charged. If you don't pay that debt when it comes due each month, that interest keeps pancaking on you. But it's easy. Oh, I don't have any money in my account, but I got my credit card, let me just pay. Financial literacy will set out for us what the pitfalls may be and guide us. How many of us understand investing? How many of us understand what it's like to have money in the stock market? Buy real estate, diversify your portfolio. So the financial literacy piece is, to my mind, critical. You remember I say, if implemented right, the financial service, the financial literacy piece, the education piece will be critical if this Aspire program is to achieve what I think it can achieve, which is a transformation in terms of our thinking. How we think about money, how we think about wealth, how we think about generational wealth, creating wealth, and really pulling ourselves up by the bootstrap. What the government is doing here is seeding the ground. Like when you go out and you plant your grass seeds, you're seeding the ground. The education that you will get now, that is to water the grass seeds, water the seeds. And then we are hopeful that as time goes on and the sun shines, the grass will start to grow. So the government, federal government, let me emphasize, not the NIA, have come up with this plan. And what I like about it, it's across the board. St. Kitts people are going to benefit, Nevis people are going to benefit. We argued for fair share, ladies and gentlemen. This is an example of what we argued for. And so the students here in Nevis who are between 5 and 18, all of you at GSS and CSS, those of you at Maud Cross, those who at Ivor Walters, those who at St. Thomas's Primary, St. James, VOJN, JLPS, those who at EPPS, wherever you are, CPS, you can now apply and be a part of this. Now, when I was 5 years old, where in this good green God earth I get $1,000 from? What I know about owning shares and having money in the bank, this is revolutionary. But as I say, the education has to be the key aspect of it. And so I encourage our people here in Nevis to get on board, to make sure your child is registered, and to get the benefit that is available to you. And when you all heard me making noise about fair share, saying that the resources, particularly those from the Citizenship by Investment, had to be more equitable, the people of Nevis had to be able to benefit from the fruits of their citizenship. I hope that people understand that it is coming to pass. It may not all happen at once, but we are seeing through programs like these that the people of Nevis have equal opportunity to access the fruits of their citizenship. And so I thought tonight I'd spend some time to encourage you. If you have a youngster between 5 and 18, if that youngster is a citizen of St. Kitts and Nevis, If that youngster was born here, or his parents or grandparents are from here, if that youngster lives here, if that youngster is enrolled in school or homeschool program here, and that youngster is eligible to get $1,000, $500 in a savings account, and $500 in shares. Over time, shares will appreciate. Over time, you'll get dividends on your shares. Over time, your money in the bank will attract some interest. And that is compounded, and it's all there in a locked box. So mommy can't take it out, daddy can't take it out. They can't put their hand on your money. And I'm encouraging parents, this is your own opportunity now to look at it and say, why? Look at little Johnny, only 5 years old. Johnny got savings. Well, how are you going to look Johnny got savings and you not got none? So, in a very real way, our children now can lead us. And lead us to more responsible behavior in terms of our finances. Because I am persuaded, some may argue the contrary, but I am persuaded that a lot of people who keep crying out how bad things are, how broke they are, how difficult they are, is because they're making bad decisions with the little money that they have. They're making bad decisions with the little money that they have. You can't go out drinking and liming and partying and womanizing and doing all the things that you're doing and then say you don't have money to pay your child support. You don't have money to buy food. You can't focus on the hair and the nails and the salon and the massage and the shoes and the clothes and the outfit. You can't do all of that and then can't pay Netflix and then bawl and say how bad things are. You have to take care of your needs first and your wants after. And that is the way life is. And I am not going to sit down here as a Premier of Nevis and as somebody who should be offering some leadership and tell you that if you are engaging in irresponsible behavior with your finances that you're doing the right thing. Because I see it happen all the time. Spend off your money doing all sort of things. And then you cannot pay for the things that you need in order to live, in order to function. And so you then try to throw that weight onto somebody else. And many of you end up costing the government because you are trying to live above your means. You're trying to, as I say, well, let me put it the other way. You're not cutting your suit to fit your cloth. You're cutting a suit that you want, but that your cloth may not be able and not be sufficient for. So I believe that this program can be a transformational program because our people now need to get back to those principles that we were taught by Auntie Lee's, we were taught by our forebears. Those principles of putting a little something aside, saving a little something, squeezing out this, earning more where we can, trying to get some passive income where we can, trying to do a little investment where we can, and not just spend every penny that we have. There's some people, as I said, if they make $4,000 a month, they're spending $6,000. Well, how are you going to survive? And then you end up doing all kinds of things that you're not supposed to be doing to get the additional money that you need in order to satisfy your wants. And so I believe that this program can really, really be a game changer if implemented right. And I'm hopeful that it is implemented properly and that we can have the necessary controls and checks and balances to really lead us to a new way of thinking where we're talking about wealth generation, wealth creation. There is no reason no reason why St. Kitts and Nevis cannot be like Singapore or like Monaco or like even Bermuda, which is closer to us. No reason. In fact, the majority of people in Bermuda, not the majority, but a large minority, right here from St. Kitts and Nevis. So we went to Bermuda and we helped to build Bermuda. We went to Bermuda and we did well in Bermuda. So why we can't stay right here and do well and attract other people to come to us because we are a shining beacon on the hill. Ladies and gentlemen, that is my soliloquy. We are now at 9 o'clock and we're opening the lines. 869-469-1616, 869-469-1700. Those are the numbers to call. If you have questions, if you have a comment to make, if you have a scripture to read, if you have something to say, this is your opportunity to say so. This is On the Mark, and I'm your host, Mark Brantley, and I'll be with you for the next hour, taking your calls and inviting a conversation with you, the people of Nevis, as we engage one with each other, we share ideas one with each other, and we have a conversation, which is an important part of building out our democracy, ensuring that our country is strong, that our views and opinions can be aired and respected, and that we have a forum where we can engage with each other, sharing views, sharing ideas, sharing disagreements where necessary, but always having a civil conversation, which is the hallmark of St. Kitts and Nevis. And so I encourage you to call 869-469-1616 and 869-469-1700. Those are the numbers to call to be a part of this show and to engage. Now, while I wait for the phones to call, at the top of the show, I expressed condolences in a general way. But I want to single out the family of Kirtley Claxton. We got the news that Mr. Claxton had passed. And Kirtley was not an ordinary person. He was an extraordinary person. He's somebody who supported the Concerned Citizens movement strongly. He's somebody who worked hard for this party, who has been known even to nominate our candidate in Charlestown, the Honorable Spencer Brand. And I would want to go on record to express my profound sympathies to his family. He is the second stalwart that we have lost from the party in short order, because we would also have lost my brother and friend Keithley Anderson Brown from Bath Village. And I always addressed him as Keithley Anderson Brown because that was the way that I addressed him, and he called me his friend, and I was privileged to have known him. And we have lost two in Keithley and in Kirtley, two real towers of strength and two stalwarts of this political party that I'm privileged to lead. And so I invite your prayers. Keithley has been laid to rest already. Kirtley, I'm told, will be laid to rest shortly. But I invite your prayers for their families, that we remember them and we remember the contribution that they would have made. Let me also, as I wait for the phones to ring, to say to you that we had for some period NTV, Nevis Television, was not on air. I got the good news today that those who have Digicel in terms of their service provider, that NTV is back on air on the Digicel platform, and so we're grateful to that, and I thank the technicians for their good work in that regard. Let us go to the phones then at 9:05 and take our first call. Good evening, you're on the mark.
Hello, good evening. A long time me not calling. Everybody asking me if I'm done with you, but I tell them me not done with you, you're busy with your work.
How are you, my friend?
Tell everybody hello up there. And Chai and Nana.
Troy and Nana, you send hello to our kind of people.
Nana and your wife, everybody, hello.
You're making me jealous now.
Alright.
You good? How things with you?
Yeah, good. I just see fighting it.
Alright. Well, it's good to hear your voice. God bless you.
Yeah, have a blessed night. Take care.
That is good. That is my dear friend from St. Kitts. She calls in from time to time, and I'm always happy to hear from you. Whenever she sees me, she always comes and says hello. So I'm truly grateful for that, and thank you for your call. Ladies and gentlemen, this is On the Mark. I'm your host, Mark Brantley, and if you're just tuning in, you're listening to the Eastern Caribbean's only powerhouse, VON Radio, the voice of Nevis, 860 on your AM dial at www.vonradio.com, and of course some are viewing online via YouTube and Facebook. We welcome all of you to the show, and we are at the stage of the show now where we're inviting phone calls. 869-469-1616, 869-469-1700. Those are the numbers to call to be a part of the show. And I'm hopeful that people out there have something to say, you have something that you would like to contribute, and that you would like to call in and share those views and those opinions with us. Tonight we have been talking about various things. The last matter that I would have spoken about is, of course, the new Aspire program that has been introduced at the national level for the benefit of all in St. Kitts and Nevis who qualify between the ages of 5 and 18. But let's go back to the phones. Good evening, you're on the mark.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Brandt.
Good evening to you.
Good evening to you and good evening to your listening audience. I want to touch on a matter that's a little bit close to home. And I'm a local business, a young, striving business entrepreneur over in the St. James's area. And I have two small businesses that I, cherish dearly, and they depend heavily on the traffic that's over at the MUA, which has become a concern for the business owners over in this area. I think the school was established back in 2015, I think, or somewhere thereabouts, if I'm correct.
I'm sorry, the school was what you said?
I was asking, I was saying that I think the school was established back in 2015 thereabouts, right?
No, man, the school has been here much longer than that.
Okay, well, much longer than that.
Yes.
But, based on the research, I've been doing some research because, you've been seeing the decline in the amount of students that's been attending the school. A long time ago, you're driving in the area, you could see students walking to school, coming out to the different buildings that were provided for them for accommodations and all that sort of stuff. You're not seeing that kind of energy anymore. I did a little bit of research, and I think up until 2015, there was roughly about 350 plus students enrolled at that school. And then after that, the numbers have been slowly declining. We had COVID, and we do understand that COVID was a big impact for everybody else. And then, the school got back on stream. Students were doing the online studies, and then they slowly started to come back to the island. I think there was a change of ownership in terms of the school, and so the school has some new management. We, as the business community over here, we keep hearing new students are going to come. It's going to improve.
Caller, could you keep your voice up? Because I think you raise a very important topic,
sorry.
so we want to hear
And so I was saying, we keep hearing from, I would say, to the grapevine, that, that the numbers at the school are going to improve. There's going to be an improvement in the numbers.
Yes.
But since 2022 up until now, those numbers have been steadily declining. I think the current enrollment at the school right now is less than 100 students. We, as the business community in the St. James's area, and I know, I'm not placing the blame solely on the government, because I think the government would have done its part. We have good infrastructure in terms of road. We have proper water service, proper electricity, internet. All of that is provided. I think we have enough stores and accommodations and car rentals and all these kind of things to accommodate the students and also the faculty of the school. But what's interesting is, in my research, I was doing a bit of comparison between the MUA here and medical school that's not too far from us. It's in Antigua. And while the enrollment here has been on the decline, the school in Antigua, I think for the last semester, for one semester alone, they had over 600 plus students. Now, I'm sure you're familiar with Lionel Maxwell Hurst. He's the press secretary for Gaston Brown. I listen to him every morning, right? He's on a radio show that I listen to every morning. One of the things that is, you know, in listening to that radio program every morning is that I hear, and I can tell you that Antigua is facing a lot of issues that we don't have. Yes, constant water problem up there, road infrastructure. People calling every morning on the radio, and these are the complaints that they make. Every morning, there's somebody from the utility company in Antigua that's giving schedule for when water is going to be in this particular area. And so I said that to say we have everything that's in place to attract the students, and yet we are not getting the amount of students coming to the island here versus students that are going to say Antigua, which might not have all the proper infrastructure in place. And so the question now becomes, what are we doing wrong? And when I say what are we doing wrong, what is the government doing wrong, or maybe the school doing wrong? But I think it's the onus is on, and I put it back on the government, to start digging deep and finding some answers for the business community over here. You know, it's hard. You know, you make the clarion call on numerous occasions to, open up businesses. Want to see small businesses going, want to this, and now you make the investment, you spend the monies, and then there's nothing. You know, there's a bunch of new apartments. People keep opening up apartments up there, but now I'm seeing a lot of for sale signs. And I think, the government needs to do more in terms of, well, I would like some clear answers as to what's happening with that school up there, because you're not feeling the effect. As a matter of fact, as part of the business community, we are feeling the squeeze now. I mean, last year, I do some, I have a small little eatery in the area, and I run some scooters. Some scooters I do long term with the students. Last year I had 5 students, now I have none. And like I said, the numbers at the school keep dropping, they keep falling and falling. The school has less than 100 students up there. And somebody needs to ask the hard questions so that the business community, because we've already invested a lot of money to accommodate students who will be coming. I think the school can accommodate up to 700 students, and we only have 60. Somebody needs to look into this, Mr. Brantley. The business community over here in St. James's is hurting. We are hurting. We are doing everything that we're supposed to do, and we are still feeling the pain. And if it is that the school is not doing what they're supposed to do in terms of marketing the school, then you guys need to step in and do something.
Okay, caller, you have said a lot, and I've allowed you to speak because I think this is an important conversation. The Medical University of the Americas, as it is known, has changed ownership, as you say. There have been, I believe, a number of circumstances that have led us to where we are now, where the numbers have fallen. The last report I had, they say that there has been an uptick in terms of persons who are coming in, but that is still not sufficient to take us back to what you describe, which is well over 300 students that we used to have. And I think that everything you have said is accurate. Nobody could argue with you, because over there used to be bustling. You used to see students going back and forth. You saw them at the bars, etc. The restaurants. You're not seeing that now. Now, the island of Nevis took a decision in relation to MUA that we would try to encourage that sector, because we have seen the transformative effects of it elsewhere. You take Grenada, where St. George's University is the most successful offshore university in the world. And we thought that model would work for us as well. And for some time the university was growing. It went into some decline, and then of course with COVID it fell off the cliff. Now I, caller, am as frustrated as you are, And I have been engaged regularly. I have had a number of meetings with the new owners. It's an entity called GUS Canada, Global University Systems Canada. And I've had a number of engagements with them. They have brought large delegations here. And basically, if I can summarize for you, are you still on the line, caller?
Yes, yes, I'm
Okay.
with you. I'm listening.
If I can summarize for you, here are what they say are some of the difficulties. One, during COVID, obviously, the school could not function in a normal way. So a lot of the students went online in order to get the training. And apparently a lot of the countries from which they got students would have passed legislation or enacted policies that guaranteed to those students that their education would not be disrupted. So MUA, like a lot of the other schools, had to move online. What then happened apparently is that led to some of the students losing the appetite to come back, meaning that they got accustomed to doing what they were doing online. And so that led to less of an appetite for students to travel back to places like Nevis. Secondly, I'm told that the idea behind the MUA, you hear what it's called, the Medical University of the Americas, is that it is really a medical school. And at one point it thrived because there was a shortage of placements in the United States and Canada in particular for medical students. And so those students who could not get into school in the United States or Canada, a lot of them came here. And this institution provided support for the medical fraternity. The problem apparently with that now is that both in the United States and Canada, which were the main source markets, they have expanded significantly the placements for medical students. And so the shortage, if you will, of spaces that used to exist doesn't exist anymore. And so those students now have the option to stay at home, that is in their home country, rather than coming out here. So what they did, going back to the Grenada example, St. George's, what is now St. George's University, started out also as a medical school. That is, they were restricted to only one discipline. They only taught one thing, medicine. They made the transition to a full university. So you can go to St. George's now and do degrees in economics, business, whatever. And what I have been discussing with this new owners is the transformation now of the MUA to a full university, offering a wider range of disciplines. So let me put it this way, caller. If I am a student somewhere in the world and I want to study math, I want to study computer, I want to study economics, I cannot come to MUA because MUA is still only offering medicine. And so that discussion is very well advanced, where they now want to move to a full-fledged university, which means that they can now attract students who are studying different disciplines. The second thing is, and I believe this has already been implemented, is that the format at MUA meant that you had older students coming in, because the program that they offered here, I think, was a 4-year program. Put differently, there was no possibility for children to come directly from high school or even from our equivalent of sixth form. And so they have changed that now, and they've introduced 5-year and 6-year programs at this MUA here in Nevis now, so that children can come at a younger age and start their education here by doing certain preliminary courses as they get into medicine. So they're trying to expand the pool of potential students who can come, and they're moving now to move away from just offering medicine and to offer other disciplines. And we have had quite a few discussions with them as to what are some of the disciplines that we would like to see offered here, because we think that if it were to become a full-fledged university, even Nivision and Kittitian students might be able to attend if the various disciplines are being offered. They have also indicated, caller, that they have engaged now with marketing agents around the world, and that they are ramping up their marketing efforts because they say to us that they have experience in turning institutions around. And Based on my own research on them, they're one of the largest players globally in terms of these universities, and they have many even in Canada that they're responsible for. So one of the meetings that I had recently was with a number of persons that they brought on island who are from various high schools. There was a gentleman who has high schools in China that his company controls, and there were people from various schools in Canada, and the idea is that they're trying to develop these partnerships now which will drive students to this institution in Nevis from those schools. So a lot has started to happen. I have expressed my frustration to them that it is not happening fast enough, and I have been told, please be patient. The numbers are already starting to turn around slowly, and they expect that by the time this new curriculum and new efforts bite, that the numbers are going to shoot back up. I have said to them that my goal and my hope is that certainly we could get those numbers up to at least 1,000. That is my goal, and that is 1,000 students plus faculty. And they have said to me that they think that this is feasible and that this is possible. Now, I am not trying to deny the obvious difficulty that those who would have invested are dealing with, because you have to meet the bank, you have to meet your commitments every month, whether they're students or not. But I'm just trying to explain to you that the government has not really been quiet or inactive on this. We have not been saying anything publicly, obviously, but we've had a number of meetings, and they've come time and time again to let us know where they are. So that is the state of play, as best as I can give it to you, in terms of what I'm aware of and what they're trying to do in relation to turning the fortunes of that institution around. And as I said, based on the recent numbers, it looks like they are starting to get some traction again, and that is what they're seeking to do. So the fundamental shifts are to introduce new programs. One, to move from just the 4-year to 5- and 6-year programs for medicine, but also to move to a full-fledged university where more than medicine is offered at that institution. I will only add this, caller, that what we are seeing in Nevis also to some extent seems to be happening on St. Kitts for whatever reason, that there has been a general fall off as well. You know, Ross is the big entity over there, but the numbers are not as robust as they used to be. So clearly there are some market forces out there, and it will be useful now that you tell me Antigua is growing for us to look and see what Antigua is doing that is attracting growth. But I have a relative, an in-law, who worked at St. George's University in Grenada, and she reported that in fact they had started to lay off persons at that institution because of the same problem. The uptake seems to be dropping for offshore universities generally. So if Antigua is bucking the trend, it's certainly something that we would need to look at. But Gus has assured us that they can turn this around and that they can meet the target that we have set for them of getting to at least 1,000 students here. So if it is at all possible, my advice to you and to others like you is to hold on and allow us to work through this process and to get the students, them coming back, and to get MUA, or whatever name it will be called, back on its feet as an institution that is adding real value to the island of Nevis. But it is a process, and it's a process that we've been working with them on. So I hope I've given you as best as I can the explanation as I have had it from the owners.
Again, and thank you very much for that, Mr. Brantley. You know, it's good when you could get some information. But again, my final point, the final point that I want to make on this is, you know, where they would have laid all those plans on the table, so to speak. I think that it's up to our government, whether it's you government presently or we have a change of government and there is another government. But I think the onus is on our government to keep the pressure on the school as to what's going to be happening with the school, because it's not just the students alone. Faculty, I mean, I have, like I said, I have an each week. The students would come, they will stop, they will We discuss certain things, and the faculty too. And a lot, even some of the older professors who used to be there for a number of years, have uprooted and gone. The last professor I spoke with, which is a very good friend of mine, so I won't even call his name, very good friend, we've been friends for a number of years. And he said that there's a lot of uncertainty as to what direction that school is going. And I have to take it from who's in the kitchen, so to speak. And so again, Mr. Brantley, from the business community over here in St. James's, we just need you guys to keep the pressure on. And if it is that the school is, we just need to know. We need to know what's happening.
Caller, can I ask you something? I mean, I'm agreeing with you, and absolutely agree that we need to keep the pressure on. We need to continue with the engagement that we have now, and I am happy about this call. In matter of fact, I'm going to try and grab this particular exchange and send it to them, because maybe hearing it from you, as a representative of the business community, they will understand the situation. Because as I said,
Mr. Brantley, not to cut you off, because I've already had a letter. I actually drafted the letter from since the 9th, I think, of January this year. Because you keep hearing, oh, the nut is going to turn around, it's going to turn around, and then a semester passed. Because I already have a letter drafted that I plan to send to the dean. I've already started to call some of the other business owners for signatures so that we could come together as a group and approach the university.
Well, I'm happy you said that, and you interrupted me, but you interrupted me for a good cause, because I wanted to ask you, to what extent have you as a business community out there who rely on MUA, to what extent have you engaged with them? Because I know you said the government must do its part, and I agree with you. I'm not trying to run away from the government's obligations, but as a business community yourselves, I think that it would be helpful if they understood from all angles that there are people who have invested on the strength of MUA and what MUA is doing, and you are now in a difficulty because their numbers have fallen so precariously. So I feel that it's important not just to hear you, but to hear everybody together, those who own apartments, those who own businesses, etc., coming together and also having that dialogue with MUA, with the dean, with Gus, and letting your voices be heard as well. I certainly will take the message forward, as I have been doing, and I will do more of that in light of your call, but I can only report to you what has been reported to me thus far. So I hope that you as a group can also take your concerns, and if you have a letter, absolutely send that letter. They must hear from you as well.
All right, Mr. Brantley, thanks for the listening here.
All right.
It's needed sometime, and like I said, I'll end with, we need to find out what's going on in terms of that school, and we need that help. I'm going to do my part. I mean, it's not that the business owners over here have an association, but I took it up on myself because it's concerning to me.
Okay.
It's concerning to me as a young businessman who is trying to do the right thing, trying to do my business out here, and trying to survive. Okay. And so I've already drafted the letter. I've held off on sending it. I've had it drafted from since January of this year. Had all kind of people read it to see if it made sense, and I keep holding off on the letter just because you keep hearing all this time that it's going to improve, it's going to improve. This has been, I think we're in the 3rd semester right now, and the number is, like I said, less than 100 students up there. Anyway, thank you for listening, and have a good night.
All right. Thank you very much, caller. I, in fact, just got a note that says that during the pandemic, the university did not lay off a single worker. They kept on everybody, paid them, kept everybody, with the full salary, and that was one indication of the commitment that they have. That doesn't answer, caller, your specific concern or question, but certainly I think you've raised a very important point, and I will certainly take your concerns forward. We have been having those discussions, but I agree with you that they need to do more. The numbers again to caller 869-469-1616, 869-469-1700. I want to comment on that caller who just called in. I did give him some time because I think he was raising a very important issue about the economy here and a significant part of the economy, which is the MUA, and their performance or lack of performance, as the case may be. But I'm not commenting on the call for that, because he and I had an exchange and a conversation. I'm commenting on the call because of the quality of it. The caller called in. Naturally, he's concerned, but you realize there was no cussing, there was no just sharing of views. That's what I talk about when I say that I know that we have the capacity to have a conversation in this country. Let's go back to the phones. Good evening, you're on the mark.
Mark?
Yes.
Good evening, sir. How are you?
Good evening to you. I'm well, thank you.
Good. I have a concern that somebody needs to ask a question and find out what's going on. CXC, the results are back, and quite a number of the subjects has come back ungraded. And we are hearing kind of rumors that the government owes CXC. We are hearing CXC refuting that, saying that that is not the case. But we need to know what's going on, because our children, some of us have children that have applied for certain programs in certain schools, and they are waiting on these results. And so, can you shed some light on what is going on, if you know?
Well, caller, I think you've answered your question in a way. Certainly on the issue, you say you've heard talk that the government owes CXC. You then say that CXC has issued a statement saying the government doesn't owe them anything. So to me, that's an end of that matter. You are right that there's some subjects that have come back ungraded. We know that it has nothing to do with any non-payment, because whatever is owed to CXC is up to date. So I want to put that to rest. That was part of the false propaganda that we continue to get in this country. So CXC has clarified it. I believe the federal government has clarified it, and the information that I have is that no monies are owed to CXC. The problems that I gather have largely to do with some of the technical subjects, and based on the report that the cabinet got just today from our own Minister of Education, the Honorable Troy Liburd, it seems to be some miscommunication appears to be some part of the problem. It looks as if some students had to submit SBAs, and that those SBAs would have been submitted. Everything has to go through, I'm told, according to Minister Liburd, through the portal that is managed through the registrar, and that registrar is in St. Kitts. And there seems to have been some lapse in communication between that registrar and CXC. So there was a breakdown there, which led to some subjects being ungraded, but the minister advised that he had been advised by the national minister, the federal minister, who is Dr. Jeffrey Hanley, that some of those exam results should be forthcoming very shortly. In fact, we were told today that that might be as quickly as next week. So we are hopeful, caller, that that might be the case. But as far as I know, and as far as I've been told, and as far as CXC has now confirmed, it has nothing to do with non-payment. It has to do, as I was advised today, with some lapse in communication. Apparently, information was sent to CXC through the registrar. CXC sought some clarification. Those emails were not picked up or responded to for a number of reasons, and the result was that they couldn't proceed with the process to ensure that the children got the grades back on time. But I'm told that that matter has now been rectified, and that the grades should be coming in short order. So I'm hopeful that those students who are still waiting will have their grades in short order being available to them. That is the information that I have, and that is the information that I can give to you, caller, in terms of where we are and what is happening. So I'm just asking for our people to be patient. I was advised today, and I want to make it clear, that Minister Liburd said to us that there was no default or deficiency in Nevis in relation to this matter, and that the education system in Nevis did what it was supposed to do. The deficiency, it appears, came about because of the communication glitch between the Office of the Registrar in St. Kitts and CXC. So that is the information that I have. If I have said anything incorrectly, I'm sure Minister Liebert is there. He can call in and correct me. But that is what I've been told. But please, caller, do not repeat the lie about fees being owed, because that was a headline that really was intended to be propaganda and nothing more. As I talk about propaganda and nothing more, I realized recently that the Honorable Attorney General Garth Wilkin came under some attack for some comments that he would have made in the Parliament. Now, Garth is not a politician. He is a lawyer who has become the Attorney General. But he, no doubt, must understand that he's in a political arena. And if one thing we can be assured of in the political arena is that licks will share in politics. That is the nature of things. Licks will share in politics. So you must be prepared to take licks. And I must know, because I have the scars to show. If I were to lift up my shirt now and you see my back, it is covered with scars from the blows that I have get. In fact, some have said that I have gotten more than my share of blows in politics. So I'm not too concerned about the back and forth. I try at this stage in my political career to look at the substance. I was not in Parliament because I had to leave, so I did not hear firsthand the Honorable Attorney General speak to the matter that he spoke to that has created a furor in the community. But I subsequently listened to some clips of what he said. And the gist, as I understand it, of what he was saying was to warn our people not to revel in, share, and send around a lot of these WhatsApp forwards and these voice notes and these messages that are utterly false and that can create real problems in the community. Now, it is for the Attorney General, learned as he is, to select the language that he chooses to use when he conveys his message. My language might have been different. And so, that is his choice. And if he used language which was inelegant, language which was abrasive, and the uproar is because of the language that he employed, then I feel that is a matter for our public. Excuse me again. However, the language aside, the Attorney General, in my view, raised an important point. And that point has to do with, again, where our society has come to. And this caller, who called in previously, has really pricked my conscience, pricked my mind, and said to me that I ought to address it now. Because you hear what the caller say? A lot of things being said that within government in place CXC. Now CXC put out a statement saying that is not the case. But the caller still appears not to know who to believe. And I, ladies and gentlemen, want to say that we are at a particular crossroads in our country now, where there is a tremendous amount of misinformation. All of us who have a phone see information passing through almost second by second. The favorite that I have nowadays is breaking news. Breaking news. Who doesn't want to hear what the latest news is? So when the headline says breaking news, all of us break our neck to see the breaking news. Now I want to comment on the specific thing about CXC, because I see a particular publication which is really just a political propagandist publication put out this breaking news that the children are being disadvantaged because the federal government did not pay CXC. That was the breaking news. That was the headline. It turns out that that is utterly and completely false. Now, if these were responsible journalists, they would come back, they would retract that headline, and they would say, mea culpa, we made a mistake. That is in fact not true. But them not say sorry, them not say that's not true. They rile up the whole community to the point where this caller tonight is saying he hear this and he hear that. People respond to being riled up. And then when CXC puts out a statement saying that is not true, we are not owed any money by St. Kitts and Nevis, no retraction, no apology, then just move on to the next story. And I have detected a pattern that is emerging here where lies, misinformation, distortions, they spread these things. We lap it up, we drink it up, we forward it, and at the end of the day, we respond and get ourselves hyped up, angry, vexed over things that are simply false. And I feel, if I understand the Attorney General, that he was, in his own way, asking our people to desist from that behavior, to cease and desist from using all these various social media platforms. And Lord, every day there's a new one. You have Instagram, you have Twitter, which is now X, you have Facebook, you have TikTok, you have WhatsApp, you have all kinds of avenues, all kinds of social media channels. And my understanding of the Attorney General's, the kernel, the core of what he was saying, is that our people need to stop this practice of reveling in and disseminating false and in some cases malicious and dangerous information. Sometimes information that can put people's lives at risk. And he pointed quite correctly to the fact that we have legislation in place that can criminalize some of this activity. You see these things called cell phones? I can't even remember what we used to do before them. But I have said they can be a loaded weapon, because they can be used for good, to protect yourself, to hunt for your family so that they can eat, or they can be used for bad. And there are a lot of people in this country who have become bullies because they get behind their phone, they get on their computer. Many of them have fake profiles, so they feel, okay, nobody knows who I am, so let me say the most horrible things about people. Let me create a breaking news story, no matter how false, no matter how outlandish, and let me rile up people and spread that around. And I believe what the Attorney General was trying to say is that that behavior needs to stop. Now, there are people out there who know better, and if they don't know better, they ought to know better, who sought to say that this was an attack on freedom of speech. And I'm here to tell you perhaps what many of you already know, that freedom of speech isn't free. That freedom of speech does not mean that you can say anything you want to anybody or of anybody. That is why there's still laws about defamation. There's still, even in the great democracies of the world that we look to, the United States and elsewhere, what are referred to as hate speech, which is actually a crime. You can't go online, you can't go on radio and television and things like that and incite That's a crime there, it's a crime here. So I feel that the language aside that was employed by the Attorney General, that the core message that I think we ought to pay attention to is that this behavior that is taking hold in our country is destructive and ought to stop. Let's go back to the phones. We lost that caller. Caller, please call back in. That behavior is destructive and ought to stop. Let's go to the call now and say, good evening, you're on the mark.
Good evening.
Good evening to you.
Yeah, I've been listening to your program here. I'm always one who always listens. But tonight I just want to find out something. With the $1,000 on the account for the children, is it you could add on it?
Yes.
Or you could add on it. So
but you can put in, but you can't take out until the time.
Okay. So you could put in, but you can't take out.
Yes. You must leave it in for the allotted time before you can take out. So
no, I remember as a youngster growing up, we used to get something what you call school banking.
yes.
What about if money can transfer from that to the account?
My understanding is yes, because they say that you can put into this account, this lock box as I'm calling it, you can put into that piggy bank, but the piggy bank is locked. Right? So you can add. So if you have money in the school account, you can certainly take it out and put it into this account.
Okay, that is good. That is good. The other thing concerning the phone issue, I realize the phone thing, it creates a problem even in the workplace, that you're not getting work for your money because people spend more time on the phone than on the work. And I believe government needs to get a little more serious on this thing, because as far as I see right now, we have a problem right now in the Federation. The problem we have, people want money and do not want to work. And the next thing is, do you do work for the value of your money? We have a big problem in St. and Nevis. I don't know how we're going to get it work, but government has to be more serious, especially this idea where every minute somebody putting in sick leave. Sick leave. It is not too good for our country. Mind you, you cannot tell people that they are sick. But government need to monitor this thing a little more serious. Otherwise, you will just be paying people all the time for sick leave. So, I thank you.
Thank you very much, Colin. We've had a lot of conversations about productivity and the need for greater productivity, so that's important. But I think all the aspects that we have been mentioning tonight, are people taking greater responsibility, greater financial literacy and responsibility for their spending, are people not engaging in destructive behavior of sending around false information and parading around in this fashion. And like you're talking about, people giving an honest day's work for an honest day's pay. It all talks to us changing our mindset as a nation. And I think that the theme tonight is really about that. And so I agree with you. Let's go back to the phones. Caller, you're on the mark.
Good night, sir.
Good night.
How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. Thanks for calling. How can I help?
We all had a good 41 independence. And first of all, I want to salute the government for the program. I want to send condolences out to the family of Milk, Jane McKnight, who I was told was buried today. And first, I'll go back to what I've already been telling you. Mr. Brantley, we have to think outside the box. This system of government that we use is outdated. We need reform. We cannot treat running a country like a game. The winner takes all. it is outdated, the modus of operandi. We need more inclusion. I would have changed the system to make sure every party put up a candidate with a plan, and when the plan is made public, technicians work on the plan. Then the people vote. So there is no surprise in between. Each person get a share of government in implementing the plan. And so where the criticism come from when we're working together? But we have people outside who people voted for. And these people who outside voted are frustrated because outside of the game, a country should not run like a game. That was ancient England thinking, European thinking. We should be more inclusive. That is one of the things that would eliminate a lot of these back talking and backstabbing and the nature and the culture policy, because it's competitive. You have to remove some of them competitive to cooperation. I said it in the school, and I said that I think that we need to be more thinking about cooperation and competition. Competition they destroy. Competition don't really build up the opponent, they destroy. And so I think the system needs to reform again. We need more to think outside of the box, be more inclusive. If we could say, oh, Mark Brantley is the Prime Minister, the NRP is the deputy. They work together. When Mark Brantley is away, she take over. When Mark Brantley come back, she go back as the deputy. We do the same thing with tourism, with education. We do that. Whoever wins be the chief minister, he could be an NRP, be the man for tourism, and his deputy even from the CCM, and the government will function because everybody's playing a role. But when people is outside who have capabilities and they lack one for 5 years, sometimes 10 years, without having a say in about the decision-making table, it is not democracy. Then that is that's exclusion. We win a game and we take all. No, that's not that can't be fair. A country cannot be run like a game. We have to psychological think about that and be more inclusive. We get the thing. We say we want constitutional reform. We're speaking to. I asked for audit to Mr. Tappert Seaton, and he told me there's no need for reform. He was just the design of the Constitution, and I wrote him a letter, get a response, send a copy to his response to every member in Parliament, and nobody responded it because he told me in his letter there's urgent need for response for reform constitutionally. Everybody again is dragging their feet because it will be a shake-up. We need a shake-up constitutionally because we're independent people proud. And one the last thing, when we are
Caller, before you go on to your last point, because it's a consistent argument. I like that about you. You're very consistent in your positions. But that first point you're raising, what support do you think exists out there in the community for that argument that you're advancing?
Mr. Brantley, leadership will bring support. If you show that it will diffuse the tension amongst us, we share what we have. Charter thing, but we must share. We must share whenever we have a thing. I would like to see that J-term will come and bring so much progress to Nevis and we function in a way. Oh, the NRP don't sit at the table, decision making table. The NRP don't sit on a board. No, should not be like that.
Okay. No, I hear you. I understand the point you're making. I was just asking you if you had a sense of people, whether people share your view.
Leader, you as a leader, the MRP leader could point people to the direction. We need to work more cover. And people are calling out for it. I hear people calling out for it all the time. For us to change that we can work together.
Okay, what's the other point you're making, caller?
Outside of the door. Competition.
I interrupted you. What's the other point you're making?
After 40 years, when will we be able to control or have full control over our police force? 40 years independence, we still don't have control over police force. And 90% of the people in Singapore don't know that. They don't know 40 years of independence, we don't have control.
So what do you mean we don't have control of the police? Who controls them?
Because the police force is controlled by the CIA.
Okay, but that's a conspiracy theory you know, because what evidence you have?
The British government announced 10, 15, 12 years ago they were going to hand over training to the CIA for the police force in St. Kitts and the Caribbean. The British announced it.
Even if, as you claim, I'm assuming that what you're saying is, caller, please bear with me. I did not see any announcement. So I'm saying,
12 years ago,
caller, I did not see any announcement. So I'm accepting what you say as true. And I'm asking you, even if, as you say, they said that the training would be handed over to the CIA, how do you jump from that to say that the CIA controls the police?
Because
I was trained at the University of the West Indies.
One example. The police is covering up a lot of murder that did not because of the CIA.
Okay, well, Cole, as I said, I don't have any evidence of that, and I don't think you do either.
You want me to give you an example?
No, I don't want any example because I can't engage in conjecture on the air.
It's a conjecture. Let me give you one example. When before they murder, assassinate Mr. Norheat, and I went and told him what they were planning. He told me one of them were planning. The police have him coming from a murder and video camera in Connery. What the police went and do is make a deal with him to assassinate this gentleman.
Well, caller, caller, let me put it this way. Caller, let me put it this way. Caller, please, can I get a word in? If it is that you claim you have that information, then the place to share that information.
Police have the information.
Caller, you two of us can't talk at the same time, you know.
No,
one must talk and one must listen. So I heard you. I'm trying to respond to you. If it is that you have that information, then that information ought to be shared with the relevant authorities so that they can investigate and bring the necessary charges. But calling
and they make a deal with the man to go to stay free by killing somebody.
But that is what you are saying.
They were doing that to me too. That's why I had to go into exile. They were doing the same thing to me. They make a deal with the murderer to kill me.
Caller, you're in exile and you're calling this show every week. So what do you think? People don't know where you are?
Me, I'm not hiding my identity.
Well, exactly. So you're saying that you're in exile as if that is suggesting that if there was some truth to what you're saying, people could not get to you. I'm simply saying to you that when we engage at this level,
you must protection and live under here down here in Guadeloupe, live under protection because the amount of assassination attempt made on my life down here.
All right, caller.
You check it out. You don't know what's going on.
All right. Okay, caller. Thank you very much. I think some of the points you make are useful, but when you get into the conspiracy theories, you know, we have no basis for that. You make wild allegations against government, against police, against all kind of people with not a scintilla of evidence to support any of it. So I would just avoid that and leave that in the future. Can we take this final call for 30 seconds? Caller, you have been waiting. You're on the air. Hello?
Hey, good night.
Yeah, you have the final word. Go ahead.
All right, good. Mark, to be honest, I will tell you something. I may not be a supporter of you. But tonight, I'm telling you the honest truth. I have to commend you on something.
Caller, the show is ending, so you got to speak quickly, please.
Huh?
The show is ending, so you have to speak quickly, please.
Okay. I got to commend you on this. That in spite of your position as opposition leader, you're still showing the people of the Federation that you can work with anybody that is in government, whether it's Labour, PAM, or whoever it is, as long as it will benefit the Federation, you are with it.
All right, caller.
Yeah.
That has to be the last word, unfortunately, because the show is at an end.
All right, man.
Thank you for your call, and we hope that you can call in next week, okay?
No problem.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, that's our show. The banner struck up. It means we have to go. It's 10 o'clock, and the show is 8 to 10, and so, caller, we apologize for that, but we have to go. We thank everyone who called, all who shared their views and opinions, and this show is rebroadcast right here on Vaughn Radio at 1 p.m. tomorrow. So if you didn't hear it tonight, you can hear it tomorrow, and if you heard it tonight, tune in again because it's so nice you might want to hear it twice. That's our show. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening, everyone, and we pray and hope that you have a good rest and that we are here to see you next week Wednesday, when we have our next edition of On the Mark. That's our show. Thank you, good night, and God bless you.
The views and opinions expressed on the preceding